the Guiding Voice podcast series, The Guiding Voice for a Better Future. Folks, I am your host Naveen Samala, just a fellow IT professional on a mission to shape the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Through The Guiding Voice, we drive conversations that matter, conversations that add value to your life and career. Successful leaders across the globe share their knowledge and wisdom with the world, and our audience will acquire more knowledge by tuning into our podcast for every minute than any other podcast in this space. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. In today's episode, let us chat with Will Haire on an engineering approach to marketing agencies, and we are extremely pleased to have Will part of our journey. Will, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice, and it's so pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and hanging out in the green room. I get to know your staff and everybody. So everybody, great crew, and I'm excited to chat with you and talk a little bit about my journey in entrepreneurship and running an agency.
Absolutely. I get supercharged by talking to entrepreneurs like you, and so is the case with my audience as well. So let's get started without further ado. And Will, I'm super interested to understand your career background. Like, how did it all start? Maybe we'll start with that first.
Absolutely. And we know with these questions, you never know how far to go back. It's like, when I was in fifth grade, I thought, but don't worry, I won't bore your audience and go that much in depth. But I do have a different background, and why your podcast is titled An Engineering Approach to Marketing Agency is my background is kind of engineering. So when I graduated high school, I joined the United States Navy right out of school, and I spent 5 years as an electrician mate on ships. I left with my electrician's license, and I went into the power industry thinking that I was going to be a power plant manager and eventually, grow into a director role or whatever that might be. And that actually led me to go to school. And what a lot of people don't know, at least at the time, I don't know if it's changed, but Quinnipiac University in the state of Connecticut, as well as Texas, had something called the Yellow Ribbon Program for veterans. And what it allowed me to do is to go to a top 50 business school, Quinnipiac University, and go essentially for free because of my time and service. I got a really top level education. I'm the second person in my family to have a bachelor's degree. A lot of what we do, although my father was entrepreneurial, he was blue collar. He ran his own elevator company. And, the fast forward a few years, I went to Quinnipiac. I ended up majoring in entrepreneurship, did that for 5 years. And then I left a very comfortable 6-figure job in the power industry to go make $10 an hour to start up being a marketing person. And it was the best decision I've ever made. If anybody's ever wondering, follow your passions, no matter how it works out, it will work out. And working in the at the marketing agency, I just started learning about marketing, sales, different aspects of marketing, and I got really into advertising. And as I journeyed through different experiences in the marketing field, like anybody else, I was like, I could do this better myself. And that, in 2018, that's what led me to start Bellavix, which is a marketplace management company for consumer brands, and we specifically help them scale on marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart. And we've been truly blessed to do that. It started out with me and my co-founder, and now we're 15 full-time employees. We've worked with some massive brands like Instant Pot, Corel, Corningware, Pyrex, Derma E, Think, Howard Hound. So truly blessed to even, to be able to say we've had partnerships with some of these brands. So it's been a journey, as life should be, but I'm incredibly grateful for all the opportunities that have been presented to me, and that's a bit about me.
Quite an illustrious journey, and one thing that that is a common thing is even my family, my siblings, right? We are the first gen graduates in the entire family, of course, and first gen postgraduates as well. That is what is a common point. And yeah,
and it's amazing too, like the fact that every generation gets better. So it's creme de la creme. It's sweet.
Absolutely. Now, can you share the top 3 things that have helped you to be successful in your professional life so far?
Absolutely. So first thing, undying optimism. If you guys haven't got it, I'm a hard guy to knock off and to get really negative, but optimism is not only core value at Bellavix, but it's something I have embodied most of my life. And it's to be able to take failure and rejection over and over and over again and be able to kind of move on to the next project with equal enthusiasm. And that's something I've been able to do really well, because the journey of entrepreneurship is not easy. And I've bounced around to different opportunities and aspects and learned a lot. So it's important to stay positive. And generally, people like to be around positive people. So you tend to attract what you put out there. The other thing, and I love this. So there's like this thought out there that it's like, you should work on your weaknesses. It's like whatever you're really weak at, you should go focus on that. And I actually take a different approach. Is I think whatever your superpower is, double down, be great at that, and hire somebody who's better at your weaknesses. If you met my co-founder, we're polar opposites. She's an operator. She does a lot of systems and processing. She hates talking to people. If it was up to her, lock her in her cubicle, put on some good music, and leave her alone. And me, I get energy. I need to talk to people. So, to put somebody like me in a role of accounting or something along those lines, no matter how hard I try, I might be able to move the needle of how good I could be by 5%. But if you put me in a situation of sales, marketing, podcasts, webinars all day, I get energy from it. I'll come up with great ideas, and I have more movement into the right direction. So that would be my advice number 2. And advice number 3, which I got a few years ago, so it took me a while to actually get this. But hire a coach. Find somebody. I found our coach from talking to other agency members, and I essentially found a coach who runs a business like 5 times bigger than we are, but he's in the same niche. And it's more important is to pay for the coach. When I was on the call with the other agency owners, I'll never forget it. I had a business coach I got through the entrepreneurial organization. I think it's the EO. And I met him at an event. And he was just giving me some free advice. And, it was great. He helped out tremendously, especially early on when we didn't really have budgets to do these types of things. But I'll never forget when I was on the call with just a whole bunch of my peers, other agency owners, and we were talking about coaching and traction, which I'm sure we'll talk about. It's a very influential book on a lot of agency owners. And I never forget that I'm like, do you have a coach? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, do you pay for a coach? And they're like, absolutely. Why would you not? Why would you expect good quality from somebody who's not invested in you? So that was a biggest takeaway. And I'll say when we brought on our coach, it's kind of when we supercharged as a business. We got things a lot more organized. We bettered our process. He stopped us from stepping into a couple pitfalls that he stepped into when he was a younger agency owner. So across the board, tip number 3, get a business coach.
Wonderful. So undying optimism, and then working more on the strengths. And the point which caught my attention is we need to work with somebody who complements our skills rather than who match our skills, right? Yeah, that's a wonderful point. And most importantly, hiring a coach. Yeah, this comes as a major point out of many of my conversations and all. And definitely, I recommend every one of my audience just try to find a coach or a mentor, guys. Having a coach that would be a game changer for your life. And as Will said, right, you're going to appreciate your decision in future, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And there's all types of coaches. Doesn't have to be business. I have a coach that has like a meditation coach. So there's niches for everything.
All right. So, Will, now can you share some of the toughest lessons that you have learned out of your entrepreneurial journey?
Beautiful. And it kind of actually, my first one's going to tie into your previous question, but one of the, I think the biggest and toughest lessons is like, you will do things you don't like to do. And in my case, especially early on in the business, I did the accounting, I did, hiring and firing and all that other stuff. So I think that the toughest lesson is just to be aware of like, while there's a lot of freedom that comes with entrepreneurship and doing what you want to do, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like you still have to think of the life of the business and make decisions that's best for, in my case, Bellavix. And that was a hard lesson because you hire people you like. We learn not to hire family and stuff like that. Don't hire friends, because then I fired all of them. You know what I mean? Because they weren't a game, and that is a really firing cousins and brothers and stuff is a very difficult conversation. But you have to do what's best for your business, because that's what represents your clients. At the end of the day, they're hiring you to deliver a certain quality of service, and that was tough. I'm not even going to beat around the bush. That was tough. Other thing is, don't take people for the word. So, people can be honest, but the one thing I keep in mind is like people always act in their best self interest. It's just how we're wired. We're generally not going to do something that's going to hurt us. And so, what I learned is, there were several occasions where I started working with an agency or a business under the context of like, we're going to give you equity, we're going to give you stock options, market share. And I took them at their word. I'm optimistic, and generally I try to see the good in people, and I got screwed over several times. So sometimes I'm a tough learner. I can be stubborn. I have learned now, and my advice would be just get things in writing. Like if somebody's making you a promise, then they should be able to put it in writing, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And that was a lesson I learned early on when I initially left the power industry and started working with these other agency owners and businesses as an entrepreneur. There was a lot of promises going on, but when it came time to actually execute, they started backpedaling. And once you commit to something, once I left my job and I'm already working there, I got no leg to stand on. It's just his word and my word at this point. So that was really difficult. And the last thing is find something you love and be great at it. Like it doesn't matter what you are. My parents told me when I was little, you can never make money playing video games. And there's 13-year-olds winning millions of dollars hustling Madden and other games. So I would say, you spend most of your life at work. So it's important that you just love what you do. And also inside that context, so like getting a little more granular with it, be great at it, love what you do, but don't do everything. So like when I first started the agency as an example, we're hungry, man. I'm trying to find work. I got a family to feed. You're doing what you got to do. So we would get these businesses that would come in for marketplace management, which is great. But then they want us to do their social media. We don't really know how to do social media, but we said yes. Then they wanted us to do their Google. We don't really know how to do Google, but yeah, we'll do that too. And then they wanted us to do something else crazy. And we're like, sure, why not? And we're not charging properly. So we're in the hole in terms of profitability. We are delivering poor quality of service because frankly, we don't know what we're doing. We're strong at marketplaces. We're not strong at these other aspects. And then we end up losing those clients anyway, because they're going to go find somebody who does it better. So what I've learned is just be confident in what you do, double down. And if you don't do it, it's okay. Just say, no, we don't do that. You can find somebody else, and then that's it. So those would be my 3 pitfalls that hopefully your audience can learn from.
Absolutely. Yeah. I again concur with you in terms of working with cousins or the close family members and all. So, one advice from my side is we have to treat like anybody else, like outside
Yeah.
our family. And because I've closely observed certain people who are really good at managing this in terms of keeping relations outside the cabin, right? Parking
I like
relations
that.
and titles outside the cabin, and yeah, talk to me just like anybody else. Then probably
Yeah.
will not run into any problems in the long run. But yeah, great conversation so far.
And
Now
you
let
and
yeah,
you're killing it too, because to your point too, nepotism. So not only does that person get special treatment,
right,
but what's the message you're sending to your other employees? And
absolutely,
that will hurt your business.
yeah. All right, so moving to the next one, you hire and work on the business instead of in the business. So this really grabbed my eyeballs. Can you explain more?
Oh yeah, so it's a journey. To be honest with you, when we started the company, me and my co-founder and I have worked in every single role in the company, and it's natural when you start something like the agency in its infancy days. We were glorified consultants. I mean, really, we did everything. We didn't have anything processed. There's just like very reactive, but you don't know. You're starting something new. You have a little pretense because you've worked in the agency life, but you're working with a lot of small businesses generally when you get started. And so in the long run, what we found is, really basic. And I'll go into this when we talk a bit about some of the books that I recommend. But it's being able to process something. So what we found out is like you get burnt out after a while. You're like, I don't want to do this. I'm just, it's less security, and I'm doing the same thing I could be doing working at another agency. And so what we learned, it's like, okay, we found that this process works really good. And we found that this specific piece of content delivered well gets a really good reaction from our clients. And then we're able to kind of act on it and build accordingly. And so what we started doing really early on, reading Clockwork by Mchalowicz, as well as Traction by Gino Wickman, is we learn the importance of just processing things out, taking a complicated process, breaking it into its smallest components, doing SOPs. Like we do written standard operating procedures. Got that from the Navy, but it's applicable to almost every aspect of business or engineering or anything else you do. And then being able to hire somebody, train them to do it, and then hold them accountable for the results. It's okay if this SOP morphs over time because the systems change, process change, technology changes, the market changes. Like we're in an evolving system. But it's important to have that infrastructure in place, give somebody the training, and then let them kind of run with it. And then make sure you're checking and that things are accountable. Not so much that they're adhering to the process, but that they're delivering the results. When it comes down to the process on our end, we're looking at hours invested because we're in human services. So a lot of it's, how efficient are we being? So we may give somebody free reign to run something, but if they're going to take 2 to 3 times longer than what it takes in our process, we're going to rein that person in. We're going to explain what the difference is. But each of those steps has evolved us into moving into these different positions. So really early on, it's linear. It's you, your co-founder, and you're doing whatever you got to do. Then you hire some people and it's you, your co-founder, and a few helpers. And then it gets bigger and now it's departmental, HR, sales, marketing, operations, accounting, finance. You have the department heads. That's the point. And then things start grouping under there and you can hear how things get more complicated. And generally you don't start there unless you're like private equity and you have a bunch of money already invested in the business. So what I'd say is like how to process it, what it's like to work in the on the business instead of in the business is putting the infrastructure in place for team members to take over. And there's a book, I can't think of the guy's name, but he's a very popular author in the entrepreneurial industry. But he has this concept of like turtle on a post. How does a turtle get on a fence post? A turtle has a shell, a turtle can't climb. How did it get up there? It needed a team to lift them there. And that's what that concept is building the infrastructure, empowering people and allowing them to lift you to that next level. That Bellavix is bigger than me at this point, and it's because of this journey that got us there.
That's quite fascinating. And now let's dive deep into these two books that have influenced. Okay, now maybe we'll start with Traction, right? So what did you learn from this book, and how are you implementing? And I repeat, the name of the book is Traction by Gino
Gino
Wickman.
Wickman.
Gino Wickman,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So he's responsible for the entrepreneur operating system. If you're in the EO network or any entrepreneur group, they're probably doing some adaptation of Traction. It is really popular. So if you're running a business, it's 300 pages, it's well worth it. But more importantly, so a couple things we took from Traction early on, we focused on our brand messaging. So we were in the marketplaces, but we didn't really have a clear identity of who our ideal customer was. By the time we started implementing Traction a few years ago, we had enough customers to kind of understand like we want to work with more businesses like this. Please keep businesses like this away from us. We're not interested in working with them. We're not a good fit. So the first big piece is like, who's your ideal client? What's the messaging? How are you attracting them? Identifying that audience and kind of building a little bit of a backstory around that. The second aspect is like accountability and metrics with inside systems. So systemizing things is a big part of it. In both books, I reference, systemization is how you process and scale your business. There's no way around it. Gino Wickman came up with this concept of rocks. We actually apply it to our clients' accounts as well as to what we do. And so on top of and every team member should participate in this, generally department heads as you get bigger, but early on we had everybody play rocks with us essentially. But our rock conceptually is like we have our year goal. Our year goal is to process a bunch of stuff and hit a new sales target, for example. And so you'll take that goal and break it into 90-day chunks. And then within those chunks, you're working towards that goal and you're chiseling away at this bigger rock until you get it to it's a manageable size. And by the time that rock's done, you've solved this big issue that's impeding your business to get to the next level. Then you jump onto the next rock. And if you have trouble identifying, like, what should I be focused on? What is the biggest problem in my business? You'll run through the problem star, which is referenced in the book. So you're able to identify this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. how are they all connected, and what's the one problem that is causing that would allow for these other problems to be less of a problem. And when you go through that exercise, like I can't tell you how many times we went to a meeting and we're like recruiting or sales or like this is the issue. Then we do the problem star and it's like we need better job descriptions. Who knew it was that easy? And then we would work on it. So that was the biggest thing. And then with traction and the entrepreneur operating system, we have a coach helping us implement it. There are self-implementers, and there's ranges of success. There's YouTube videos you can look into it. Myself and other user groups I'm a part of, the businesses that are able to implement this really well, they hire a coach who's done it, and the coach walks them through it. So that's a bit about traction.
Wow, quite interesting. I'm going to definitely read that book. Now let's talk about the second one, and I had hard time pronouncing it, but I'll give it a try. Mchalowicz.
That sounds right to me. I've been butchering his name since forever, and I only read it on the cover of books. So Mchalowicz, let's go with that.
Right, yeah, Mchalowicz. Yeah, his book name is Clockwork, right? So
yeah. So he
what
has
did you learn?
he has
Yeah.
several books, by the way. So I've read Clockwork. If you're reading them in order, Pumpkin Plan is number 1, Profit First is number 2, Clockwork is number 3. And I'll break it down. I happen to be a big Michael fan. He writes these killer books. But from Pumpkin Plan as a concept is the focus on what's your thing. So Pumpkin Plan is like, how do you grow the biggest pumpkin? You focus all your efforts on the one pumpkin. And when these other ideas come up, these smaller pumpkins, you don't get distracted. You cut them off and you allow it all the nutrients to focus to that one pumpkin. So that one pumpkin becomes a super large pumpkin. And that's the concept of the Pumpkin Plan. Profit First is looking at profitability of your business and then how to finance it properly so that you're not using debt. And then the third piece of this, you can see how it all plays together, is Clockwork. Processing bits and pieces of your business so that you could step out of it, other people could step in, and you could elevate yourself to that next level of what needs to happen inside the business. So I'm recommending Clockwork because that's a book that we use religiously and we tie it back to traction. But all 3 books are powerful books, and anybody who's an entrepreneur and kind of into these things, I recommend just reading all of these books.
So how are you using their systems to frame your systems at Bellavix?
Yep. So everything is systemized. So, the way we have learned to do it is even as we launch new things, it's like you can't micromanage everybody, and it takes a tremendous amount of time. And where we're at now, it's like I can no longer step back into the system to go in to help team members figure out certain things. So it's important that as new ideas come around, you test them and you don't get too crazy. But when you find something that works, like we're rolling out an influencer marketing program as something we do for the brands we work with. Weren't sure if it was going to take, pitched the beta to a couple clients. They're like, sure, let's dance. We got a couple really good successful case studies out of it. So we're like, okay, this can be a service. So where we're at now with that is like, okay, now we need to systemize this. So my director at the moment is going in and he's figured out all the different components that need to go in. What are the resources involved? And then what are the processes at each phase? So what is it like when we onboard somebody? What is it like when we communicate with that person? What does the reporting look like? What are the deliverable looks like? What are the KPIs we should be talking about? Because if you're in the marketing world, bottom of the funnel, conversion rate, sales, pretty easy. But top of the funnel, impressions, click through, general awareness, new to brand sales. So being able to position your product like that, it helps. So the process of each of that, so that when we do onboard the next person and we're charging what we think we should be charging for that, it's a consistent experience. We can expect a certain outcome, and we can deliver confidently what we said we would deliver. And that, in a nutshell, that's how we process everything from the start to where we're at now.
Wow, that's amazing, and energetic conversation so far. Will, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Let us further energize it, okay, and supercharge our audience with a quick rapid.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right, let me fire the first bullet. What was your childhood fantasy, Will?
Probably like everybody, I grew up in the Michael Jordan era. So being a professional basketball player, obviously being 5'10" and Caucasian, that wasn't in the cards for me, but I still think about what it would be like if I could hit that three throw or slam dunk.
All right, moving to the next one. What is the best piece of advice that I've received so far?
Embrace change, and it's absolutely true. Everything changes, so just kind of rolling with it and being open to change and not getting stuck in place.
In fact, that is essential and much more essential in today's world, right?
Amen to that. Change is so fast.
Yeah. So, can you describe yourself in one word?
Optimistic.
And what has been a worst decision in your life so far?
I had trouble with this, so I would say I don't have a worse decision, to be honest with you. I try not to dwell on negativity, so I would say I just don't let negativity define me. So.
That's awesome. All right. So, last one. What is one fantasy gadget that you would like to see or invent yourself?
Teleporter. I would love to just be able to I would love to do this interview in India with you and just Star Trek myself over there, give you a high five, do this in person, and then go back home.
Yeah, I wish to see that technology as well. So is the case with almost 80 to 90% of the guests on TGV.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic rapid fire, Will. And now let me flip back to the mainstream. And before I let you go, one final question for today's conversation. What will be your biggest piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their careers?
Beautiful. So I kind of tune this down to anybody in the marketing field, but it can be applied across the board. So in marketing, there's something called the T concept. And what it means is getting really good at two specific niches inside the marketing industry. For me, it was SEO and advertising. Dove deep. I really enjoyed it. And I was able to be great at it. And the riches are in niches. So whether you're an IT professional, accounting, or anything else, find those two areas of that specific niche that you love, dive deep, and be great at it.
Wow. Riches are in the niches. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Will. I thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it and I loved your energy. I'm sure my audience would have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thanks again for being part of the journey. Really appreciate you
Heck
taking
yeah.
time.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks everybody for listening.
All right. So, folks, before we move into the trivia section, here is a request to you. In case if you haven't subscribed to us, please subscribe from the app where you have tuned in from. Also, if you have loved this NHD conversation and found the episode useful, request you to share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who can benefit from the guiding voice. All right. Now, let's hop into the trivia segment of today's episode. So, today we spoke to an NHD entrepreneur, Will Haire, right? So, I would like to talk about Soichiro Honda. So Soichiro Honda, in case if you are not aware, he's a founder of Honda. And before founding his automotive company, Soichiro actually applied for an engineer position at Toyota Motor Corporation. And he stayed unemployed for a long time before starting his own business. So likewise, at times, rejections happen and we have to wait patiently. Later on, miracles follow. Right? This is the case with many of the successful entrepreneurs across the globe. So just be patient and some miracle will come. Don't ever think about the rejections. All right. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And folks, if you have any topic recommendations or guest speaker suggestions, do reach out to me through social media. Just search for Naveen Samala on any social media platforms and you can reach me there. Or email me at theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com. All right. So I'm your host Naveen Samala, just a fellow IT professional and a passionate learner on a mission to shape the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Until next time, bye bye. See you all in the next episode with another wonderful guest. Thank you.